my friends. Welcome to Sort of Brilliant, a show where the characters are made up and Hogwarts house sorting absolutely does matter. My name is Rachel.
And I'm her best friend and co-host, Lauren. Every other week, we're going to invade a fandom and determine whether your favorite character belongs in Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, or Slytherin. There's bound to be some arguments along the way.
But in the end, we're always right.
Well, according to us.
According to us.
Hello, friends. Welcome back. We're going to try to speak about Supernatural never again. So we're here today with probably, everybody else is going to say it's more popular than Supernatural, but is it really? The Marvel fandom. So I'm here with Rachel, who will not leave this podcast, and she continues to argue with me weekly. And for the first time ever, we have a guest with us. We're going to be bringing in guests. Usually the format is going to be when we don't know what we're talking about. We absolutely do know what we're talking about with Marvel, but our producer, Hannah, loves it so much we thought we'd bring her in. So, hi, Hannah.
Yay, hi. I'm super happy to be here and talk about these dumbasses.
Yeah, they are really dumb.
They are extremely dumb. And Hannah's like a combo. She's our bridge from Supernatural to Marvel, so...
Yes.
This means nothing. I said I'd never talk about Supernatural again, and I meant it.
No, she's a flat out liar because there are points that I'm going to make that relate actually back to Supernatural.
It's not a Supernatural podcast.
I literally have a note in here about Cass.
Yeah, I got one about Dean. It's not a...
You guys
listen,
suck.
if you know us, if
nobody
you're here
knows
from,
anything about Supernatural outside the 1.3 million people who saw every single episode.
There you go.
Your avid listeners are going to know all about Supernatural from your 2 episodes. So they're going to understand.
True. If you are here listening to us talk about Tony and Stephen Thor and you didn't hear us talk about Dean and Sam and Cass and Jack, you're a fake fan. Get off our podcast.
No, please don't get off. But like after you're done with this one, go listen to the other ones.
It was just such an inviting welcome. Why wouldn't they?
You should be angered by the fact that I've challenged you and called you a fake fan. Like, prove me wrong. Is the whole thing.
Well, I think that's going to work on everyone, Laura.
All the Slytherins listening are like, hell yeah. Absolutely. The Gryffindors have left. They're like, oh,
have they?
Get rid of this lady. So
Gryffindors might be fighting out of spite. The Hufflepuffs are like, okay, bye.
Yeah, we know all about spite fighting, don't we?
I don't know what you're talking about. Never done anything out of spite in my life.
Neither has Tony. No spite. Never.
Well, that's a segue.
Is it? No, it's not. You can't just immediately start going Marvel, MCU. This is MCU specific. I guess we should be clear on that.
Yeah,
it's about the movies because the only comic books I've read are Deadpool and some Spider-Man and Hawkeye, the new Hawkeye from 2012. So, and Rachel's staring at me.
Only ever read Buffy comics. I've never read any superhero comics. Well, Buffy's a superhero, actually. Okay. But I've never read anything related to the MCU or not MCU.
Marvel.
The Marvel-verse.
Yeah.
You know? No, never dabbled in that.
But you have seen all the movies.
Of course I have, like everyone else.
Of course I have. I've seen all 22 movies. Of course I have.
I really recently just did a full rewatch.
I kind of did too. Last summer, we have another friend who was going through them for the first time. And I think we started at before Ultron. I don't remember. Somewhere before Ultron and then to the end. So it was almost a rewatch.
Almost.
I mean, I missed like the origin movies basically for almost everyone, but
I did a full rewatch with my Marvel crew at the year anniversary of Endgame, and we did all of them in 3 weeks. And then watched Endgame so that Tony snapped at midnight because we hate it. Yeah.
I can't look at that that last shot. Like sometimes it'll come up on social media, like someone will put up a meme or like something to do with Tony, and it's a picture of him post snap, and after Pepper's like, you can go, it's okay. I can't look at it.
Endgame
I can't look at it
in case you haven't seen it yet.
Why are you here if you haven't seen Endgame? What are you doing with your life?
Why were people on social media at all the day that it came out is what I want to know. But
yeah.
Stupid questions don't have stupid answers, so
it's true.
That was a bad idea. Anyone, listen, if you're the kind of person that gets upset because you saw spoilers online and you're online the day something comes out or the day after, what
Something
question your
big
own
too,
choices?
like a big thing.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
That's
I
on
guess
you,
I
Kim.
could see people being like, like it slipped through my mutes or whatever. But the people who like a week later were like, Endgame spoilers. I'm like, why haven't you been to the movie theater yet? I cannot do anything for you, man. Like people are gonna talk about it at some point.
I definitely I don't agree at all. Okay, excuse me, I don't agree at all. Do not go on social media the next day. Do not do it. You're setting yourself up. Come on, like Harry Potter 7 came out, and I didn't even go in to get my own copy. I sent my brother in because people were drive-by screaming, Snape kills Dumbledore, like assholes at the 6th book release. Like, no, I'm not getting spoiled. There's no way. Like, I'm not doing it.
There's actually a legitimate Deadpool panel where he's waiting outside for the 6th Harry Potter book and somebody drives by and screams Snape kills Dumbledore and he goes after them and murders them. So
yeah, but that's what should have happened in reality. But what actually happened was someone drove by and screamed it and all the children cried. It was horrible. Like this was a thing that was going on and on and on. So it teaches you stay away from shit the next day after it's released or the day of. Endgame spoilers. You knew that was going to be everywhere. Anyway.
Now that we've berated everybody who maybe opened this and was interested, we'll get to the contents.
They're smart people. They're here. They agree with me, okay?
In 18 months, there are no spoiler warnings here.
Yeah, really.
I gave one to be polite in case somebody was like, oh shit, they're going to talk about Endgame?
What are you waiting for at this point?
Maybe they're waiting for WandaVision. I don't know how people's brains work.
Maybe they're waiting for an alternate ending to come out because that one sucks.
Yeah, also true. The official alternate ending.
I wasn't a fan. I came out of that movie and I was like, that was a movie.
Infinity War was 1,000,000 times better, which probably was more upsetting because I watched Infinity War and was like, this is going to be great. And then I was like, the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, the scene at the end where they all start coming back through the portals is amazing.
Yeah.
That's
fight
awesome.
Scene's cool.
At the very end is like, oh, this was your choice. All right. But it gave us a lot to work with sorting. I will say that.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Hey, so let's talk about the person who started the whole MCU. The heart of the MCU. Tony. Let's do it.
I do be loving some Tony. Okay, guys, where do we put Tony? Which is the correct answer?
Gryffindor.
Why did Lauren ask? She was like,
no.
Gryffindor?
Because you said the correct. No, I said Gryffindor. Like you would say something else.
Oh, people do. People do. I see a lot of Slytherin, Tony. I'm not here for that. I'm sorry. I don't. There's no way.
Nobody else can be snarky in the world ever or jaded.
Nope.
No. It's just the way that he is. It's just not. It's not a Slytherin way. I don't see it. I mean, Hannah and Lauren are more forgiving of it. Like, oh, I can see the points, and I'm like, no. No,
I'm not forgiving of this. Well, I guess I'm more so than I am of what everybody else puts Steve in. But
nah, okay. Hannah understands.
Yeah, I mean, there are points to be made that there are a couple, but like you can tear them apart pretty easily,
right? For
the Slytherin.
Okay, so go. I'm the only non-Gryffindor in this conversation, and neither one of you are telling me why he's a Gryffindor.
Well, let's start at the beginning of his story where he's fucking being held captive, and they're like, hey, man, you're going to build us this shit. We're terrorists, or we're going to kill you. And he's like, I refuse. If I die, I die. Because he's not going to do it. It's against his moral code. It's wrong. He doesn't give a shit.
No, that's true. The defiance is a big thing in Tony, and that, like, even at, I don't remember actually if it's the first Iron Man or the second. Sorry, Hannah, you're the Iron Man expert, movie-wise. But the outright defiance of the government wanting his suits, like, this isn't to say other houses can't be defiant. Slytherin certainly can be, but it's the way Tony does it. It's in the charisma, the passionate arrogance, where he's like, you can't have it, boo-hoo. Yeah, I don't see you answering that way.
You can't have it. I did you a big favor, though.
Yeah.
Oh, has a problem with authority trying to tell him what to do. Tony is
Yes.
smartest, so Tony is right.
Yeah.
I
I
And it's
agree.
not even just that I'm smartest. It's that, like, I don't trust the government to do good things with my shit. Because
Well,
he
that's-
has these trust issues from the first movie of, like, my technology got into the wrong hands and bad things happened.
Yeah,
so
that's
no
the
more.
first
No
thing
one
I
can have my
said.
shit.
That was my first point. If we were going to start at the beginning, and like he has a moral compass, was that he learned his weapons were going to terrorists and stopped manufacturing weapons. Basically,
Yeah.
he was like, we're no longer a
Literally.
weapons company. Yeah.
He gets back on US soil. He's like, give me a cheeseburger, call a press conference, puts zero thought, talks to no one about it, is just like, it was bad and we're not doing it anymore. We're
Right.
done.
And then like I haven't seen no I have. But wasn't like cuz he cuts back and then he makes the suit better. And like his entire motivation in doing it was just kind of to help people, wasn't it? Like he
Yeah,
wasn't
he
building
wants
a
to-
weapon.
yes.
Yeah.
He wants to take out his weapons that got into
Right.
the wrong hands and protect the people who it's hurting because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
It's literally it. It's like, yes, he loves technology and like I'm sure it's very fun for him because it's what he loves to do, but his whole motivation behind it is like, this is messed up, it's my fault, even though it's not really his fault, arguably.
Right.
You know, he was ignorant to what was happening, but to him it's like, it's my fault and I alone have to fix this.
Yeah.
And he has the tools and the smarts to make it happen, and he does.
Yeah. And to that point, I want to talk a little bit about the logic of a Gryffindor and everything because everyone knows
They
Tony's
have
a big
logic?
genius.
Yeah, there's no
Yes.
logic there.
But just because Tony has a scientific brain doesn't mean he's less of a Gryffindor, right?
Oh,
and
no.
I really can't stress enough how much of a stereotype that is that Gryffindors can't be thinkers that way, logical, intelligent thinkers to a certain degree. Like, look at Hermione, right? It's the style and the logic that really paints Tony as a Gryffindor. He's not just building AIs; he's building friends. He treats them like
Yes.
people.
Yeah. I would almost
He
but I would
programs them
almost
to
make a
detect
distinction
sarcasm.
in the words logic and intelligence. Like I'm not sure I would
Yeah.
ascribe logic to Tony, but I would give him
No,
intelligence.
no. No. Oh, but on
Yeah.
the robot thing, that is a big thing to me where like he literally built himself friends who will never leave him.
No.
Sad.
It is sad, but it's true. It's
Yeah, but
another
there's just
Gryffindor
that the
thing.
science and the charisma live alongside together. Like they understand his sarcasm. Who else does that? Who has the kind of brain that programs robots to do that?
Who else is like, I want to build people who will fucking like beat the shit out of me verbally. I want people to harass me.
Well, I mean, quick sidetrack. We're not going to sort her in this episode, but Pepper's a Slytherin, and only a Slytherin could handle that specific type of Gryffindor. So,
Yeah, for sure.
That's really true. Damn.
Like,
well, you
I'll
also see a lot of, because of the science brain, I'm not going to call it a logic brain, okay? It's a science brain. But because of the science brain, you see I've seen a lot of Ravenclaw Tony, because Ravenclaw equals smart. But no, he shares their quick on their feet thinking, like on the battlefield or
yeah,
planning
but that's
ahead.
gut. That's gut.
Genius.
That's Gryffindor.
But it's 100% gut driven. It's 100% emotionally driven. Intuition.
I think he's
like,
probably like trained by his intelligence. His gut is smarter than other Gryffindors' guts
sure,
can be.
Well, and he can pull off a lot of things that look like they were thought through and tactical and like really smart and logical, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's literally just that he's a fucking genius.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why it works out for him like 99% of the
No,
time.
it's because he can switch so quickly that it doesn't matter that he fucks up because he can immediately head it off.
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole
There's
thing.
no plan, to be clear. There's never any plan. He's literally jumping in and just making it up as
Don't
he goes.
talk about Civil War yet. I have so much
I'm
that's just
not.
still about Tony.
I'm
No,
not.
Rachel said Civil War.
Oh, okay. No.
I have so much
We're
even
not
before
there
we get to
yet.
the Avengers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, oh my gosh. I have so the like his whole thing with having the multiple suits or whatever. No, I guess I have to kind of get into that. Like it was a PTSD thing. Like that he has all the suits. But like the whole like journey of Tony is that you take like his heroism is inherent. Like you take away the suits and he's like, I am Iron Man. Like I don't need the suits. So that's a super Gryffindor thing.
Yeah.
Like a
I
deep
love
belief
that's
in
Iron
your
Man
own
3,
heroism.
which is literally I have in my notes in Iron Man 3. I don't know what to tell you. This whole movie is a character study on Gryffindors.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, like I put like the suits make him feel safe and like in control of situations. So like Tony is able to protect the people that he loves when he has a lot of suits, but they're just like an extension of his own heroism. It's just the whole having control thing that he likes having the suits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
He does. And speaking of his suits, this is low-hanging fruit and not really a good point.
Oh, don't
but
say
he
it.
literally says paint my suit red and gold.
It was a choice.
It was a choice. Choices were made.
Yeah. That is funny when you're looking at them and
it
you're
is
physically looking at them and you're like, well, be more Gryffindor.
I want to backtrack a little bit to Iron Man 1 because I have this, I feel like he's already a Gryffindor like before this whole traumatic thing happened to him. But I really think his whole moment with Yinsen where he's like, you know, don't waste your life. And when he gets back and he's talking to Pepper at one point, he's like, I shouldn't be alive unless it was for a reason. And to him, he is like, the reason I am alive is because I'm going to take, you know, my smarts, this suit, my money, everything I have, and do as much good as I can do with it because that's why I'm still here. So it's like he just becomes the most Gryffindor to ever Gryffindor.
Yeah.
Oh, I love him.
I mean, Tony is also kind of an interesting Gryffindor too, because he's so jaded. It's almost that it's like it's uncool to be self-righteous. Like that would be it's not cool to care about people emotionally. Mm-hmm. So his self-righteousness
not to show it at least.
No, right. But his self-righteousness is much more subdued in that it's extremely turned inwards. He's like, I shouldn't care about other people, but I'm going to be really mad at myself and everything that I do or whatever. Yes. So it's like, so it's like the self-righteousness is turned in on him. And then I was also thinking, I guess almost a little bit to that counter that we were talking about, like, oh, he's so like arrogant. He must be a Slytherin or whatever. But his arrogance comes from like a sense of moral righteousness. Like he doesn't have to consider your stance because he's confident in his own. So he's like, I'm not even going to think about whether you think you're right. Because I am right and I don't even need to listen to you.
And he doesn't need to convince you because he knows he's right.
Right. And he literally does not care about other people and their thoughts over them doing the right thing. Like as long as they're doing the right thing, he's like, I don't give a shit about you.
Yep.
Yeah. That's true.
I think he also does to an extent, like to project that whole kind of facade of being like egoistic and arrogant and like the whole like playboy thing. Like I think it's kind of like a wall that he puts up to kind of like, because he is like such like a soft person at his core.
That's just a huge Gryffindor thing, though, right?
It is especially a huge thing to put up those walls until like you really trust people and let them in to like see those moments.
Well, I'm glad
I tell Lauren all the time, don't let people see that I'm actually a huge asshole. They can't know yet. They don't know me yet. Like,
well, I'm glad you like said softcore is a Gryffindor thing because I didn't know what to connect this to other than to write down he takes on responsibility for random children whenever he meets them.
I have this he adopted a kid. He adopted another kid.
Yeah.
And it's not even, I don't know. I guess somewhat it might be in a sense because all these kids he takes on are smart. So he probably a little bit is like, I want to nurture that mind. But maybe a little bit. I've never overwhelmingly gotten the sense that he's like, you're just like me. I have to like save you. It's more just like,
no, I don't see that at all.
It's more just like, hey, you're a smart kid. Here's an opportunity. Right. I'm your dad now.
Fun house of $1 million of technology for you to play with forever. Like, God, make him my godfather and shit.
Yeah. I think it's him seeing a little bit of himself and being like, maybe I can be a good thing in their life. Unlike he has so many daddy issues. And pretty much everyone who he adopts has daddy issues in one way or another. So it's kind of like
But like he never like even in Iron Man 3 when that kid is like pretty clearly neglected by his dad or whatever, Tony like literally Tony's like I don't remember what he says to the kid, but I distinctly remember him going, I don't care about your fucking problems or whatever.
He literally goes, he literally, I think he's like, Dad's leave. No need to be a pussy about it.
Yeah.
And the kid is like clocks it and he's like, all right.
Well, I don't think Gryffindors usually, I wouldn't say, are the type to need to relate to you to find value in you or like need to find like, he's like a young me. It's just there's a value in the person inherently and like what they, like not what they can do or what they can provide, but the kids are smart.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're special. They're important. They are. They're not like your run-of-the-mill dumbass kid who he would also save. But I'm just saying, I don't think he needs to relate to them and go, I see so much of myself in you, young one.
No.
Like, that's not a Gryffindor thing.
I think it's helping them
Except when
have
it's Dumbledore.
opportunities, maybe, or, you know, giving them things that they wouldn't have without him. Like, he literally gives Harley at the end of that movie, like, an entire freaking workshop.
Yeah.
You know, he's constantly building higher and higher tech things for Peter. And, yeah, he just adopts the kids. Like...
He does.
He just does.
So, talked about Tony on his own. Tony with the Avengers also plainly shows Gryffindor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty clearly. Yeah.
Look at what Tony just pulls off in general. Forget the end of the movies, right? Like the ultimate sacrifice. It's like,
no, you start at the beginning.
The beginning, Rachel.
I mean, that's just the big one.
He puts on this show of being extremely reluctant to join, even though he's all like quietly bitter about how unsuitable they think he is to be a team member. But he like immediately takes on responsibility for them as a team. And like as the team is formed, you see like it's so interesting because Tony totally puts on this facade of like, I don't really need people. I don't really care about people. And then in Ultron, he's having PTSD dreams about all of them dying and it solely being his fault. Like that's what Scarlet Witch is hitting him with. And it like he has extreme guilt over the damage that the Avengers are causing, which it like leads directly into Civil War and his support of the Sokovia Accords. But and then he also had like the huge guilt over creating Ultron, even though he by no means was the only person responsible for that at all.
Right. He internalized literally all of it and then suffered about it deeply.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk about like the Sokovia Accords too, why he was on the side of them being like, because like I had said earlier that he's not an authority figure person, but from his guilt and point of view of like the Avengers are damaging things and hurting people, he's like, yeah, there should be some sort of cap on what it is we are allowed to do because that's what feels morally right in this case, that we're like these super powered people that can arguably do whatever we want. We should put limits on ourselves to hold ourselves responsible for things.
Yeah, and Tony isn't without contradictions in that too. Like in Civil War, he's at war with himself too. Like in Gryffindor morality, I feel like it can contradict itself when two really important and steadfast beliefs like live inside you and go to war. Because he was willing to go against his friends, against everyone he loved, and even willing to stand alone in that because he was trying so hard to stand up for what was morally right in that moment to him. It's complicated and it's complex, but then also welcome to the brain of a Gryffindor.
Yeah. I really think that he literally is guilt spiraling that whole movie. Off of the very beginning when, you know, the mother is like, my son is dead because of you, and slams the picture into his chest. And he immediately is like just guilt spiraling on like all of the collateral damage that has happened in order for him to save the world. And I don't even think it's like, okay, we need to be held accountable so much as he's like, I need to be held accountable, because to him, it's like, it's my fault. It's all on my shoulders. And he's just so angry in this movie that like, especially Steve doesn't understand that like, this is the right thing to do. Why don't you get this? Like, he's so,
and then the thing about the end of that movie too, when he flips to the other side, it's really quick.
Yeah.
And it like appears to be quick, right? But it's not. It's like you're saying, he's been wrestling with it the entire time with the buildup that just inevitably brings the scale from right to wrong. And he had to adjust. And adjust he does. Like he completely flips. And it's all based on this extreme guilt either way.
Yeah.
It's like when he tells Fury, it's all because of me. I wasn't ready. I didn't do all I could. Like, my man's can't rest until he does all he can.
He's just like, when he presents the Accords to the team, like, he's just so, like, he's so sure that he can convince them that, like, this is the right thing to do. And, like, he knows that there's issues with that, with the, like, document itself. But he's like, but we can, like, if we sign it and then we're, like, you know, cooperating, then we can kind of bend it and, like, amend it to, like, work for us. Because he knows that, like, they do need to be able to do what they need to do to save people. Because he also doesn't want to take orders from people. Gryffindors are not great at that. I don't know. That movie is rough for me, for him. It makes me very sad.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one to, especially as like a huge Tony fan, when I'm watching it and I'm like, but I don't agree with him, but I completely understand.
Yeah.
Like, I completely understand where he's coming from.
Yeah. I think Lauren was talking earlier about how we don't see him be, like, righteous, like, self-righteous a lot. But I really think, like, a good example of being righteously angry is in the bunker when Steve is trying to logic with him and be like, it is not Bucky's fault. Like, it wasn't him. And he's like, I don't fucking care.
Right.
My mom is dead. He's responsible. That's it. That's all he can see. Like, there is no other thought past that.
That reminds me a lot about of Harry Potter when he finds out about Sirius Black, where he's just flat out like, it was him. He's the reason they're dead, and I'm this 13-year-old, and I'm going to kill him. Yeah. Like, that's it. Now he just must die. Like, it's just a hella Gryffindor thing. Like, it doesn't matter if there are nuances in it, if there's...
No.
When you're that emotionally messed up.
Yeah.
This is the thing, too. I see where Tony's coming from. Is there really a nuance in it? Like, he still murdered his parents. I wouldn't want to look at you either if you murdered my parents. I probably wouldn't... Well, would I try to freaking kill Bucky in that moment? Maybe. I don't know if I was having a Gryffindor hissy fit. Maybe. But you still don't want to look at that person, even if logically it's not their fault. Like, I get it.
I mean, like, once he's calmed down and he thinks about it, it's not like he loves the guy, wants to send him flowers, but it's like, he's a smart guy. He knows that it wasn't actually his fault. But I also don't think he regrets it, because to him, like, again, just driven by the emotion. Like, and it was just wrong that, like, this dude who killed his parents was standing in front of him, and his teammate and his friend was protecting him and not on his side. He was on the wrong side. He was wrong.
And you just see it in his face.
Yeah.
Tony can't handle
the betrayal. Ugh.
He can't handle the betrayal.
No.
And Gryffindors can't.
Nope.
It's not that you won't be forgiven, right? Gryffindors, I think, are the most forgiving house. Yeah. It's just that the betrayal feels so intense. Like, it's so hard to move past. You see it. It's all over him. I think, like, RDJ does such a great job of showing how much it hurts him in his facial expressions, because I always feel it.
Yeah.
I feel it right along with him.
For sure. And he's carrying that with him for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, when he does, I don't want to skip ahead, but it's so directly related. When he goes on that fucking rant to Steve in Endgame, I was like, this is the most fucking Gryffindor bullshit I've ever seen in my life. Just the, like, it's all about him. Like, the wording is kind of, you know, supposed to be about we and the universe and the whole, like, you know, big picture of it. But it's really like, you said you would be there for me and you weren't, betrayed me. And there is no trust and I have nothing for you. And then bursts out his heart, puts it in his hand.
Yeah. That was the biggest Gryffindor moment I think I've seen outside of a Harry Potter movie. I just couldn't even believe it. I was like, who puts this man in any other house? The most dramatic bullshit I've ever seen.
He's so dramatic.
I have a real problem with Steve and Tony, because I always end up on Tony's side, and like big time on Tony's side. So I have issue verbalizing it in any way.
Yeah, no, I'm on Tony's side too most of the time.
Yeah, but I at least understand Steve, and I'm still having who would probably take same action is like getting mad at him.
That's because you have a Gryffindor addiction. That's a personal problem, Lauren.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Well,
I don't know.
You can't get around like his behavior in Endgame at all, right? Like it's also hugely Gryffindor. Like
Yeah.
the self-sacrifice, the
Sacrificing
martyrdom.
himself, yeah.
Like a big thing about Tony and Morgan, right, is like he's never willing to sacrifice Morgan for any goddamn reason. It just wasn't on the table. But him, yeah, man, he's on the table, especially if it means creating a better world for her. So one of the big Gryffindor arguments is like Gryffindors are the people who would feel wrong to put their person or their people over the collective because it's putting something personal ahead of what might be morally right. And Tony shows us he's a whole ass Gryffindor by sacrificing himself the way he does. Like Morgan's not on the table, but a life without her father was.
I think even greater than that is the fact that he's willing to risk the whole time travel thing because he could erase his daughter. Like she could not exist. Like he could erase this whole like 5 years of happiness he built for himself with Pepper and his daughter. And he has that whole conversation with Pepper on the couch where he's like, I solved it, I fixed it, I can do it, but like I should just put a pin in it.
Right.
Because like he doesn't want to, but you can tell that he's like basically asking permission. Yeah. And she's like, bitch, I know you. And if you know you can help people, like you're never going to be able to live with yourself if you know that you can do something that you think is right and you don't do it.
I mean, it's also the confidence in the fact that like he knew he could. Yeah. You know, I don't know that he willingly went in and was thinking like this could remove Morgan from the world. I think he went into it like this could remove me from everything more. Like, I think that was more of the motivation. Like, just knowing he could do it. He could do it. He would never be able to live with himself if he didn't try. Yeah. He was never going to be able to rest. It's constantly a thing with Tony. Tony can't turn his brain off. He can't sit down. He can't relax. If something is weighing that heavily on him, like the guilt just completely eats him from the inside.
Yeah.
In every movie.
And especially in Endgame from the whole outcome of the events of Infinity War. It's just like he had to see Peter, another one of his adopted kids, like literally fucking fade away from existence in his hands. And that's, of course, his fault alone. And then, of course, like the entire half of the universe that's gone, it's all his fault. And he has to fix it or he's not going to be able, like if he knows there's a way to fix it, he's not going to be able to live with himself if he doesn't do it because it's the right thing to do.
And that right there is what that really just shoves him in Gryffindor for me. Like I can see the self-sacrifice thing is not exclusively Gryffindor, right? It's not. It's like true. It just feels like a really obvious thing to say. Like, oh, they like to be the martyrs, so they're a Gryffindor. It's not just Gryffindors, okay?
Yeah.
A lot of that in Steve too. And I don't think we'll get to Steve in a second. But it's not exclusively Gryffindor. It's just if you look at the way the guilt eats this man, like he can't function. He cannot sleep. He cannot eat. He can't breathe. Like he forget it. He can't do it. It's all his fault. It's all on him 100% of the time.
Literally the weight of the world on his shoulders.
And he can't logic his way out of it. Yeah, he can't think like there were other people on the Avengers that made decisions that led to this. And there were, like there are other reasons. No, it's him. It's his fault.
Yeah.
That's Gryffindor.
Yep. Ugh.
I don't have anything else to say. I was convinced like 20 minutes ago. Not that I needed convincing. I was just like, I don't need to say anything else.
I mean, I don't know. There's like more like funny things that are Gryffindor that aren't as sad. Like in Endgame when he fucking is like, give me a heart attack and I'm just going to sit here and fucking watch it nonchalantly is like pure Gryffindor chaos.
Yeah. He's just such a drama queen.
He is. He really is.
You see that. You really see that in a lot of Gryffindor characters.
What is that scene that everybody likes gifting from Iron Man 2 when they're fucking in the car and he's like, give me the suit. And Pepper's like, ah, what are you doing?
Oh my God,
he's like, give me the fucking suit. And she's like, I fucking hate you.
Yeah. It's literally just 5 minutes of screaming. It's great. I love it. The chaos. I was attacked.
He's truly chaotic. He's not an easy Gryffindor to live with. He's not.
No, he's really
there are much
not.
Easier Gryffindors. Like Gryffindors, I feel like are tough in general sometimes, just because we just refuse like to see things another way. Sometimes we're just like, yeah, sure, and then we go off and just believe we're right anyway. Yeah, like we're tough, but Tony is like a special kind of tough Gryffindor.
But having that intelligence on top of the attitude of already being like, I am right all the time. And then having the fucking like knowledge to also back it up. It's just like,
he's insufferable. Yeah. I love him, but he's insufferable.
Yeah, it's actually infuriating. Oh, wait, I was going to say it's infuriating. Like Iron Man 2 or whatever, they come to him and they were like, was it Hammer, I think, is trying to work on this equation that you like solved 20 years ago after you had sex with a
Iron
woman.
Man 3.
Yeah, or whatever. Yeah. That one guy. And he's like, oh yeah, I didn't finish this. Here you go. And like hands it back off again or whatever. No, but in the middle of talking about that, I was just thinking about this stupid fucking thing that Marvel Universe does where like all of these random villains that pop up are all Tony Stark's faults.
Yeah.
It's like Spider-Man 2 with it's like
Mysterio.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, Tony Stark's
my technology.
It's been like a meme the entire time. Like after Spider-Man 2, people started coming up with like the villain for Marvel 2 or Captain Marvel 2 is going to be like a garbage man Tony Stark flipped off in the 80s or something. Like
someone he cut off in traffic. Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
But I think it's funny because I think that is like Gryffindor is really infuriating people. So I think it's kind of fitting. It's kind of dumb, but it's also kind of fitting.
Yeah. Heroic but stupid. But then it's like Hannah said,
stupid.
It's like you said, he backs it up with being so fucking smart.
Yeah.
He really
He's
is
the
like
dumbest smart person.
Oh, you gotta hate yourself a little bit to love Tony.
I think that's what makes it the most infuriating, though, that people can come at him and be like, you were wrong. And he was like, oh, sorry. And like changes one like letter of the equation and is like, there you go. Now it has saved world hunger. And you're like, fuck you.
Yeah. Oh, he's the best.
He is. Yeah.
Well, I would resolutely say he's a Gryffindor. I understand. I was being a dick on purpose at the beginning, and I was like, I don't understand Slytherin. Like, I get it if you have another sort of opinion for him. It's just the Gryffindor evidence is so overwhelming.
Yeah.
It hits you in the face. You know, it's one of those obvious sorts for me, but
there's too much there. Like, any argument you could make for Slytherin, it's just like, okay, well, we have like 40 times the amount of points.
Right.
For Gryffindor.
Well, speaking of Slytherins, I think we should talk about our favorite Slytherin. Just kidding. It's not Lauren's favorite Slytherin.
It's not yours either. What the hell are you talking about?
Let's just call him Hannah's favorite Slytherin.
Yes. Stephen Grant Rogers.
Stephen. I've never heard anyone call him Stephen. It's just Steve Rogers.
Yes, Steve Rogers.
Steve Rogers.
Captain Rogers.
Yeah, so this is one a lot of people get wrong.
Yeah.
Hufflepuff Steve, so soft.
Or Gryffindor Steve. I see a lot of because he's heroic and brave.
No. You want to take it really down to like obvious brass Slytherin facts for Steve? We can do that. Let's look at who Steve was before he turned super soldier. Right?
Yeah. I was gonna, and we might reach some contention here, because the movies have told us things that possibly are different from every other iteration of Steve Rogers. But the movies
but it's MCU. We're not taking in comics or any of the animation. Yeah. It's literally just the MCU.
But so the movies
take everything else out.
And the movies have made an interesting distinction between Steve's people and the Avengers. So.
Right. Well, just like starting from the very, very jump, right? He's a little guy from Brooklyn. He's sick. He's got enormous ambitions that no one's going to get in the way of, right? He wants more. He's obsessed with having more.
He wants to be in the army.
It's too good, but can't be ignored. So this was my point for Steve's chosen one syndrome that all Slytherins have, right? Like, he's physically sick. He is not being let into the army for the safety of himself and the safety of his fellow soldiers. He cannot fight in the physical condition that he's in, and
he's a liability.
Yeah, and people always like, why? Like, I can give reasons after Steve becomes super soldier jacked up, but like before that, here this little guy is who has this huge ambition to be in the army, and like, I get it. He wants to prove himself and he wants to help in the war effort. Steve, there are a lot of things that you can do for the war effort that do not require you to be a soldier. And he's like no, I'm meant to be a soldier. So it's like this whole chosen one syndrome. It was like being a soldier was in itself a selfish way of proving himself. Like it was purely for his own sense of self and being or whatever that he wanted to be a soldier specifically.
Yeah, that's his fantasy. He wants to be a soldier. He wants to be like Bucky. It goes really easily to Bucky, right? I can't imagine saying Steve wasn't jealous that Bucky was able to achieve everything he wanted so easily. He's sitting there like drooling every time there's a newsreel about enlisting in the war. This is his big goal. He's so goddamn ambitious that he makes it happen. He lies to make it happen.
Yep.
He lies on the enlistment papers to further his own ambitious goals. Hi, Slytherin.
Yep. Yep. And I also think part of the reason that he really does want to go into the army is to be with Bucky, because Bucky is his singular person in the world at this point.
Bucky and then later on Peggy. And I was going to say that might be the point of contention, that Steve's only two people are Bucky and Peggy in the MCU.
That's point of contention, but we'll get there later.
Oh, God. I'm going to become a listener when that happens, guys. All right. Well, talking about his own people, right? Talking about Steve's people. One of Steve's biggest things is taking care of his people. That's the most important thing in the world. It might not be enough to obviously have people sort him into Slytherin right away, but he is a super Slytherin about it. How wrong would it be for Steve to leave Bucky? Even when Bucky's being hunted, he's the enemy number one for everyone else. Bucky's his best friend from back in the day. And I've made this point before. That matters to a Slytherin. The people who were there from the beginning, the people who earned their way into your circle, especially simply by like just having been there. Like you're going to be more defensive of those people if you're a Slytherin, more loyal to them, regardless of whether you agree with their choices or not. Sometimes, right? Still very Slytherin. Like, would you guys? Well, no, I'll save this.
Especially, but here's the thing about it: it's his only person. It was his only person, and it's like his. What is the quote? It's like, even when I had nothing, I had Bucky.
Right.
You know, because his dad was MIA, his mom died. Like, Bucky is his person. It's his only person, and of course, if he comes back from the fucking dead, which he's been like beating himself up over.
Yeah.
For not protecting his person, you know, he's gonna fucking go tooth and nail to like protect him and get him back.
Right.
Who else is doing that?
It has so much to do with, but Bucky was there from the beginning.
Even though he's a mass murderer.
Yeah, well, like I said, sometimes you don't agree with what your people do, but when you're a Slytherin, they're still your people.
It's true.
Yeah.
Take responsibility for these stupid actions and I'll go to the mat for you, but you're dumb.
Yes. Very much so.
Pre-Avengers, this is pre and post-Avengers, but he so obviously is a natural leader. Like, he immediately, it's Howling Commandos, right? That's the, so that special force that he was in charge of, like super easily captain. He's just somebody you naturally call captain. Like, he falls into that role very simply. Like, he gives orders as a normal way of speaking and you just naturally listen to it. And I actually had here too that when he does join the Avengers, it's kind of a point of contention too, like who's the leader of the Avengers? Is it Tony or is it Steve or whatever? And I would say that Tony would have felt that he had been given this team of Avengers almost and taken on I'm responsible for them like Gryffindors. But I think Steve threatened Tony's leadership just by virtue of being himself. He was just there doing his thing.
Steve is absolutely the leader. I think they're the co-leads, but Steve really is default, especially in Age of Ultron. I believe Tony even makes a straight up, I can't remember the quote, but he basically is just he's in charge and points to Steve.
Yeah.
So he definitely, he is the leader of the Avengers.
Yeah, well, without a doubt. And I don't know if Tony loves it the entire time, but I think he comes to it he said.
Loves it when they agree.
Right. And so, okay, listen, Steve's Hannah's favorite. He's her little cinnamon apple. So I'm not going to sit here in front of her and call Steve obnoxious unless she says it first.
Oh,
he is obnoxious.
I have a point that goes up his own ass about his importance.
Yeah. Yes. And he is like that even before he gets the serum.
Yeah, he is. And before he's a real soldier, when he's just around putting on shows in Europe. He is.
Yeah.
And it's like what you said, Lauren, about the chosen one syndrome. It's just they're we're gonna give you the super soldier serum, and he's like, okay, yeah, I can do that. It sounds like I'm the person for that. Like, he never questions it. He's never like, why me? Like, are you sure? He's just like, yes,
that
of
doctor
course.
sits him down and is like, you have a good heart. And Steve's like, you're right.
Yeah. I do. You're right. A Gryffindor would be like, no, I'm awful.
Are you sure you have the right person?
There would be doubt there for sure. Like, you would have to convince a Gryffindor to be like, oh, I actually, okay, sure.
No, Steve is literally sitting there with his end goal having been, I want to go fight in Europe. And this doctor's like, I'm going to pump you full of some really experimental, possibly deathly drugs, and you might be able to go fight in Europe. And Steve's just like, I'm going to go fight in Europe. Like, that's
he's like, I'm going to punch some Nazis. Great. That's exactly what I want. And I think this is just one of those things where it's like, he doesn't ever really doubt himself, and he's always confident. He's very calculated in everything he does. Like, sure, he can fly by the seat of his pants because Slytherins are really great at that too, but there's thought behind it. Like, there's planning and calculation. Like, he's very tactical. Like, he is a tactical genius.
Oh yeah, I have. He's really good at reading the rest of the Avengers for their specific usefulness, and he literally does not bother with people who aren't useful to him.
No.
Yeah. Well, that also ties into the obnoxious thing, right? Because that obnoxious part of him, that's because he does his best and he wants others to do their best. So you may feel inferior around Captain America, but it's because he expects better of you. Otherwise, like, who the hell are you?
Well, that's
like,
that's one of Tony's big problems with him. Yeah. Like, you're so fucking patriotic up your ass. You think you're better than me just because you love the country and I think it's a shithole? And Steve is like, yeah, I do.
Yeah, but that's a huge Slytherin thing, okay? It's something that causes like 90% of my fights with Lauren, because when she can't understand me. Because by now you guys know Lauren's the biggest Slytherin to ever Slytherin, okay? And like Steve, she expects people to see shit the way she sees it because they've both got high standards. It's so hard for a Slytherin to not understand why other people can't think the way they do when it's so obvious to them. Like, Steve and Tony really have this Slytherin Gryffindor like madness with how they fight with each other.
That banter where Tony's like, why don't you understand this is the right thing? And Steve's like, why don't you understand that I'm right?
Yeah. Like, just from the very beginning, he's like, all right, enough horsing around, guy. We're doing it my way. Tony's like, absolutely not, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. From, like, their first fucking interaction when Tony, like, leaps off the plane and is like, I have a planet's attack. And Steve is like, no.
What is Tony? I'm paraphrasing, but Tony's like, just because my dad jizzed in his pants all over you doesn't mean that I'm going to be following you around.
Yeah. Tony is very...
He's like, excuse me, are you saying you want to do something differently than me, you fool, you imbecile? Like,
Tony has a lot of baggage even before, like, with Steve, before Steve even is de-iced, because of like how his father worshipped Steve. I know, going back to Tony now, but it is like their original point of contention where like he has kind of this issue with him, but also kind of wants his approval. And then off the bat, Steve is like, what is your problem?
Yeah. Or even what about like how, like, moving on from the obnoxious thing, like we could probably do that all day.
We'll come back to it.
I said the thing, but Slytherins also really need goals in a way that I don't see in other houses. And it's something that I really, really see in Steve, like with how he behaves in Endgame. Because it's not just the loss of his people, it's also the loss of a common goal. And I've noticed Slytherins don't do well when they don't have a goal or something to work towards. There's like a hopelessness they severely struggle with. Like, he's got his little therapy group in Queens, right? That's where he was. Mm-hmm. And he helps Nat with Thanos, of course. But because, like, without having those goals, Steve's going to go fucking nuts. Like, the tasks are what keep him really focused after the snap.
Well,
if you backtrack to Avengers, the first one, he, like, literally has nothing. Like, he wakes up, he has no people. His people are gone. He knows nothing, and he has no goals and nothing to, like, fucking work towards. And he's so, like, unmoored and just pissed off.
This is something that I said to Rachel last night, that Steve has these people and his goals are pretty much directly related to these people, especially after he's done with the war and chosen one crashes his plane into the ocean unnecessarily. But he wakes up with nothing to do, and then Bucky shows up and suddenly he has a huge thing to do. He has to keep Bucky safe. So he's doing that, and then, like he said, Endgame happens and everybody disappears and he has nothing to do again. But I think I think even without it being actively, I think always his background goal is like this general idea of his loved ones and like being with them or helping them or whatever. So then when you reach the end of the movie where he is like, the world is saved, Bucky is clearly okay and has a buddy now, and they're like time travel crystals, he's like he's like, an end goal that I never stated out loud, but has been me staring at this fucking locket all along. Goodbye, everybody. And he's like, I've got nothing left here. And like this background hum has always been me staring at this fucking compass with Peggy's picture in it. Whether or not you like that regression in Steve's character, it is something that he's like, it was always here and now I've got nothing to do here in the future. And so bye.
It's 100% a regression, but it's canon, so we have to accept it for these purposes.
And it's extremely Slytherin. Because
it is extremely Slytherin.
I'm
just going to say one of the reasons sorry, Lauren, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if you the way that I voiced it to Rachel last night was not flattering, but if the entire time, if you take the canon and look at it for what it is, and you're struggling with the idea that like, how did he leave the Avengers? You have to take the canon and go, the Avengers weren't really his people. Like, he showed up in the future and Fury was like, we're fighting bad guys. And Steve Rogers was like, I'm good at fighting bad guys. And he did that until there was no need anymore. And then he was like, see ya, I'm going back to the 40s. So
I don't know if it's that they're not his people, but like the point I made before, they're not his original people.
No, I mean,
that's important. Like the original people are like from the 40s.
We're going off the canon where like Peggy was important enough to leave the Avengers. So obviously she is also up there with Bucky. Yeah. And now at the end of Endgame, his people are back. Everyone's safe except Tony. He's dead. He can't do shit all about that. And he's like, okay, Bucky's safe. He is not brainwashed anymore. Like, everyone is safe, has like a good life. There's nothing else I can really do
the
for
mantle
them.
To Sam, like it's some
he hands
big,
it to
huge honor.
Sam.
Yeah. Which I guess it is, like, but he like makes a huge dramatic deal out of it.
He does. It's super dramatic. But to me, it's like, yes, the Avengers are his people, but he can justify it to himself, going, they're safe, and I'm gonna go back to my other ultimate person who I thought I could never have. Yeah. But now, in the circumstances as they are, and I have the means to get back there.
Right.
And it's like, and it's very much a me thing. It's very much this is my selfish act. I've earned this because I've done all of these things and I've taken care of my people and I've saved the world. Like, I deserve to have this thing and I'm going to get it for myself.
Yeah. And he might have felt guilty about that if people were around watching him do it, right? It's a big Slytherin thing. When the eyes of everyone is on you.
I was going to say, not telling anybody, like, hey, heads up, I'm going to be coming back as an old man when this is all done. That was very Slytherin. I was going to say, too, Rachel and I are going to start talking a lot about Hufflepuffs and how they other people in the next coming episodes. And, like, I was just thinking now, like, what you were trying to voice, because there's a very big distinct, like, I still would, like, fight so hard against calling the Avengers his people, because your people, I feel like, are the ones that you are like, fuck you to others for, which he did to the Avengers. So that's still
why
like
I say they're not his OG.
No,
OG
that's
people.
no. I know, but there's like a distinction too. Like, Slytherins don't, like, they don't do that layering thing that Hufflepuffs do to the extent that Hufflepuffs do. But I would definitely say that Slytherins have their people, and then people that they like feel a kinship with, and then the rest of it is fuck all. But I mean, I was thinking about this last night because I was getting so interested in it because it was something that I hadn't thought about before at all. And I hate that I'm like sorting. I won't sort her. I'll just say it. I don't want to sort people in the episodes that they're not being sorted in, especially if we're going to talk about them later. But I was thinking about Nat and Steve's relationship and why it works so well. And the reason that it works so well is that both of them understand that they're nowhere near important enough to be the other's person. So every single time that they're like, they both respect the moral ambiguity of the other, that they are going to flip on a dime, and the other one is just going to have to be okay with that. And they always are, because they understand that. They're like, all right, like, I understand you're going to go for Clint, or I'm going to go for Bucky, and like, it's no hard feelings. We're still buddies, but they understand that implicitly, so they're not getting mad about it.
Yeah. I think their brains, they understand each other. Like they get each other and why they do things too, and that works really well. I really love the Winter Soldier a lot, just like seeing their whole like camaraderie as like soldiers in arms kind of develop into this really cool, unique friendship. Which is something I was like, you see in this movie, like Nat become officially part of his circle. And like, I know Lauren's going to be like, it's not really his circle necessarily.
Not,
but, I mean,
not in that sense of the term.
I mean,
Steve has buddies who understand him that he fights with, and then he has people who he's going to be the one going over his own self for. And those are like the ultimate people. But otherwise, it's like a mutual respect for the soldiers in arms.
You have people you love and care about, but I'm sure you have the ultimate people who, like, you would say, fuck any of these other people.
The distinction I'm making is the people that I would say fuck anybody else for versus people that I am like moderately good with and will listen to out of a mutual respect versus the rest of the people that I don't pay attention to at all. So
I just think, I mean, again, I'm not a Slytherin.
Rachel, literally nothing is happening, so I don't know what your issue is.
I'm so scared.
I don't know. We're not arguing.
I don't want them to fight. I don't want them to fight.
We're not fighting. We're allowed to have different opinions.
No, you're not with Lauren. Don't lie to yourself.
We have different opinions on many things. It's never okay to her, but it's okay to me. I see what you're saying, and I see the points. I just don't agree with it. Like, I just think that there is a distinction between him having a respect for other people who he would fight with in a battlefield and the Avengers. Like, it's not the same. Like, the Commandos were different to him than, like, other random soldiers. Yes. Like, he would say, go fuck yourself to other random soldiers.
Yes.
To save Commandos.
Yes.
And it's the same with the Avengers.
Yes. I don't know what you're arguing with me, because I'm putting these people in the category of like, I mutually respect you and will listen to you as somebody who I see as an equal footing on this field of being soldiers and blah, 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 blah. But I think Nat is there. Canonically, when she fucking dies, he's like, so the plan's going forward? Cool. and then they just continue. So like, it's the sense of who are the people that above my own needs I'm gonna lose my fucking mind over versus who are these people that I allow to be close to me and will listen to because I respect them and I do love them in my own way, but I'm not putting their needs above my own. Like, there are very specific special people that you're doing that for.
I'm just not going to argue further because here's the thing. It's like, you don't see him do that for Bucky after Infinity War.
No, because Bucky was done. He like brought Bucky to his point. Bucky didn't need him anymore.
But
and
Bucky was dusted. That's what I'm saying. He wasn't losing his mind, and Bucky was gone.
Oh so yeah, because he was going over Peggy. Because he was going after Peggy. Like, I don't know, because he was thinking about Peggy at the time. Because I think he was going all the way back to who's the first person I ever like failed. I don't know what he wants to call it in his brain.
Well, that's why I keep going back to the OG circle thing. Like, really, that explains it all to me. If you're there from the beginning, you're in a different category than people that aren't. Like, that's how I see Slytherins view things, because it's always like that with Slytherin characters or my Slytherin friends. If people have been there from the beginning of something with them, they're taking precedence over certain things. It's weird. It's a weird way of thinking of friends and like categorizing your people. It's something consistent I've seen in Slytherins.
Yeah.
So it's not hard for me to think of it that way.
Like, it's also, like, thinking about it more now, too, Steve was working on getting the dusted people back, and Steve's, like, sure, like, he has these end goals, and Slytherins are sure that they're going to reach the end goal. So I also feel like it was something where he was like, obnoxious, very full. Like, I know I'm going to get Bucky back. Whereas Peggy was dead 5 years ago as a 90-year-old woman. So he was like, this is an impossible thing that I'm warning, versus I'm definitely going to get Bucky back. Or like Nat sends herself over a cliff in an alien world. And he's like, well, that's the end of that one. Like, I can't do anything about it.
Well, I mean, he literally can't do anything about it.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm like you had said earlier too. Like, Tony's dead, and he's like, well,
I can't do anything about it.
But I feel like the dusting, he was like, I can do something about this probably. So, well, because the whole idea that they had was that if we find Thanos and kill him, then we'll be good to go, and then it like moved on from there.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree with that. I just disagree about the circle thing. I definitely agree that with the canon we're given with Endgame, that Peggy, as well as Bucky, who we already knew, are like his ultimate people. But I definitely believe that the Avengers are like just below that.
Yeah, I know. I agree with that.
That's what I've been saying. I am making distinctions, though.
What you're saying,
but no. But what I am saying is that he will. That in the hierarchy that it is, he obviously did say "fuck the Avengers" for Bucky and or Peggy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So,
and that's so.
I thought you were just like
Slytherin.
I thought you were just like they're just like a step above like a citizen on the street.
No, it's not. Yeah, that's not how it works for a Slytherin. You're either a person on the street or you're special, and then you go within the special category.
All right. Well, I'm no longer defensive, so we can move forward.
And like a majority of everybody is a person on the street. So that means that also just puts you in special by virtue of being maybe one of 20 people at best.
And it doesn't like lessen how much he cares about them, right? Because the fact that he stayed there so fucking miserable for so long for his friends is a big deal, right? But when they weren't looking anymore and Tony's dead and his friends are safe and happy and no one's there to guilt him or judge him about his choice of leaving them, he's back in a second as Joe Biden. Like, and you can't say shit about it. He already did it for however many years, so deal with it.
Yeah. He's like, I deserve this. Say something. And everybody's like, I fucking can't, you bastard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people struggle with this one, but it's important to make the distinction that this is a Slytherin move. Only someone in Slytherin would do this. Like, you want an example? This is what Snape does with Lily, okay? Forgive the Snape example because I know he's an asshole, but Lily's dead. Long dead the same way Peggy is. But neither Steve or like Snape can let that one go. It drives them and it motivates them way beyond that person's passing to do good in their name too. And then Steve does this hugely Slytherin thing of saying, but I have a chance to go back and actually live the life I wanted. And I don't have anything else here that's going to tie me in any real way. Like, I've earned this. I'm going back.
It's I deserved this. Everyone else is fine. So bye. Like, I won't feel guilty about it.
He said, Sam, they're your problem now. Like, he was like, howdy.
Here's my special Frisbee.
No,
they're your problem now.
Oh, you know what? Well, you know what else was Slytherin? The not speaking to Tony for 5 years until there's something that can be done, and then showing up at his house like, "Hey, best bud." Like,
bro, that fucking letter at the end of Civil War was the most Slytherin bullshit. Because it was like Tony's like, "Oh, a letter of apology?" No, it was like, "Sorry, you felt bad." I regret.
I broke
nothing.
Everybody out of prison that you worked so hard to put in jail. Goodbye.
I hope that you can understand that I was right. I didn't mean to hurt you, but sorry you were. It's not.
No, I told Rachel last, like, I'm so sorry that I never explained Steve in flattering terms. Maybe it's like part of my own self-hatred, but like he comes back and is like to Tony is basically like, hey, the thing that I want to do is make all the snapped people come back. So can you maybe risk your daughter's death so that can happen? No, I haven't spoken to you in 5 years. And poor Tony, who is like, we haven't spoken in 5 years. I remade your Frisbee for you. And Steve's like, cool, sucker. And it's like such a Slytherin Gryffindor reaction.
Yeah, and Tony's like, yeah, that makes sense.
I think that was
as a Gryffindor, you just have to get used to these Slytherins. infuriating.
That's one thing I do really like about Endgame, though, is having them like repair that relationship without either of them really giving. Like, both of them stayed true to their beliefs, and neither one of them was like,
They're
I'm
both
sorry,
like,
I was
it's the
wrong.
end of the world. I don't fucking care. Like, whatever.
They're like, we're over it. Like, we
Tony's
trust
like,
each
I'm going to
other.
be dead by
Like,
the end of this movie. And Steve's like, I'm going to be back in 1948. So fuck you both. Like,
That's something I really see in Slytherin friendships I have too. Like, you can be really pissy at each other for a little while, and then like it's just at some point you just get over it and move on to something else. Like, I can't do that with my friends in other houses. Like,
it's true.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, because the Slytherin, even if they are wrong, is just going to continue like they had never acknowledged that it happened, that they were wrong. And I don't know,
true.
I don't know exactly what it is on the Gryffindor side.
The
If, like, the
Gryffindor
anger
is
just
going
dies down.
to we just bury it and it'll come out later. Yeah, we don't forget. We're like, thank God we can be friends again. Oh, fucking sweet.
Yeah. We bury it and then we come back from the dead or space.
Well, I'll never acknowledge it again. So
and then we're like, I feel much better now.
You get mad at me never ever acknowledging it again because it never happened.
Well, for my friendship with you, I actually don't get mad when you don't acknowledge it. I take it as a win. I'm like, oh yeah, she's going over it. That's great. She's pretending it didn't happen. Yes. Like, this is me knowing you though. With other Slytherin friends, it's just like, whatever, go be wrong. I don't care. But we move on. Like, we somehow are super immature, but are mature enough to do that. I don't know how it works. We got weird brains.
It's been 2 hours. Let's talk about Thor.
That's some segue.
I'm moving it along.
All right, moving it along right into Thor. We have placed Thor in Hufflepuff. Okay,
we did.
It's just what makes the most sense. I'm sorry.
It's
I
obvious.
see a lot of Gryffindor Thor sorting,
Stupid.
and I just
I'm sorry, it hurts me.
Is a Gryffindor because they're brave and loyal. It's stupid. Delete from your brain.
Well, with that logic, then every superhero is a Gryffindor.
Yeah, it's like if you're a
but Thor is a Hufflepuff with those same attributes. So specifically because Hufflepuffs are going to be loyal, like, there's so much more. Are you kidding me? Oh, I don't want to hear Gryffindor Thor, even though it rhymes and it sounds pleasing. It's incorrect.
Griffin Thor. It does kind of sound nice, but wrong.
Yes, incorrect. Shame on you.
I have so much to say about Thor. Like, he has the least amount of bullet points, but I have so much to discuss about him. Well, like, so his community is Asgard. Mm-hmm. Like, the people of Asgard. His sense of self is wrapped up in being Asgardian. Much more so than the Avengers. The Avengers, we've been talking about Hufflepuffs too as people who, in order to move communities, need to have another community to kind of go to. Like in the Jack episode, I talked about him, how Cass tore down the house like part by part and moved it from like heaven to the Winchesters or whatever. But like Thor, I don't think ever made that move from Asgard to the Avengers. The Avengers were like a side thing he hung out with sometimes. No, I fully agree. It's always been Asgard, and I think that the MCU canon has continued that too, as Thor is going to be continuing his journey without really the Avengers. But like his whole storyline, especially in the first one, revolves around him proving his worthiness of his powers and position to Asgard. Like that's literally what Thor is that he's too arrogant, and Odin is like, fuck you, go be a worthless human. and then he has to like earn his place as a ruler of Asgardians. And that's almost what his entire arc is. And now we're going to run into issues where I'm like, they regressed Thor, but it's canon, so we have to talk about it.
No, it's true. That ego that you brought up, like that arrogance, that's one of the big reasons people call him a Gryffindor. And like I had a friend argue with me about this, saying Thor's ego is the reason he can't be a Hufflepuff. That's a really base level argument. Okay?
Now I forgot what I said to you. What did I say to you? I said Hufflepuffs can have an ego.
Yeah, but let me introduce you to Cedric Diggory. Like, are you kidding? The thirst for glory, a lot of thirst for glory with
Cedric
Hufflepuffs.
Diggory's dad is a Nazi Hufflepuff?
No, I'm not calling him a Nazi because his Well, no, his dad is a. Anyway,
That's not dead.
you really made me lose my point. I have no idea where I was going anymore.
Cedric
But they
Diggory's
share
arrogant
that,
as hell.
right?
Yeah.
He is, yeah. They have
Yeah.
a thirst for glory. It comes from daddy issues, okay? It comes from your upbringing, that arrogance. You can't discount the upbringing at all with Thor's ego. It's not like he's not Tony. Like, they don't have the same kind of ego, even though they clash because they do have egos. It comes from totally different places.
I think
And
I
also
said,
he's a warrior. So
Yeah,
of course
I was-
he's good at it.
I was gonna say his identity and his like sense of usefulness is wrapped up in this identity of being like an ultimate warrior, like to be this person. Like I was telling Rachel, there's so many times where the movies make the like, haha, so funny that Thor's like, no, really, I'm the strongest Avenger, but he's like serious. He's the strongest Avenger, right? Like like that's
Right.
a thing that he needs to know because that's how he's identifying himself in like the groups that he's putting himself in. Like that is who he is, and it's who he needs to be.
Yeah. And he just he gets played up for a comedic relief a lot. Obviously, he's a funny guy, he's a funny character, but he does take that very, very seriously. He takes a lot of things very seriously. He takes his loyalty to heart. Like, in a super Hufflepuff way, because Hufflepuffs are going to be loyal despite anything else. So you've got his whole relationship with Loki. Someone in another house would beat the fuck out of Loki and leave him stranded somewhere to die before they took responsibility for them or continued loving them, okay? Especially with all that betrayal. You know how hard it is for a Slytherin or a Gryffindor to swallow a betrayal? Not to mention repeated ones like Loki.
This reminded me, I mean, Thor goes about it a different way because he's so sure of himself the entire time, but it reminded me of Cass and like how Heaven like steps on him the entire time and Cass is still like, but I love you, you're part of my family. And Thor is more like, Loki tried to stab me again today. I love the fucker. Like, invite him over to dinner.
Yeah. Show me a house where that shit stays true other than a Hufflepuff. The closest might be a Gryffindor, but you're never hearing the end of it from a Gryffindor. You come to Thanksgiving dinner, dickwad, if you want to hear a speech about what a piece of shit betraying asshole you are. But Thor, Hufflepuff that he is like, to Thanksgiving be merry, for I love you always.
No,
like,
seriously, he thinks it's funny. Like he's telling stories about how when I was a child, Loki tried to get me bitten by a snake. Didn't we have a great like childhood? Ha ha ha! And everybody else is like, the fuck? And he's like, it's just how we love each other. And Loki's like, no, I want you dead. And Thor's like, ha ha ha! You'll never manage. Like,
it's like the endless forgiveness and patience, and like just like, I love you even though you keep trying to kill me and other things that I care about. Like, I just don't, what other house is gonna put up with that? Like, with a smile and be like,
it's not even like, it's not even only putting up with it.
Like, is like, he's adopted.
Yeah,
like,
but he takes responsibility for Loki. Like, he wants to be responsible for him.
Yeah. He is he's like, that comes back around to he's responsible for Asgardians and like the whole like the amazing place that Ragnarok took us to and that Infinity tried so hard to do before Endgame ruined it was like this whole Asgard is a people, not a place. So Thor learns this lesson that like the people are the community and the identity and that this is what I am leading and embodying or whatever. Because I was going to say like he has such a contentious relationship with his dad too. Like his dad like throws him away like trash and is like, you're a stupid, arrogant little kid. And like Thor keeps coming back to like save him or whatever. And then his relationship with his mom is so sweet. Like how much he cares about her. Yeah. And like, and really truly values her. And it's just all wrapped up in like Asgardian culture and the community of being an Asgardian.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And Thor doesn't also like just bringing up his mom and that sweetness with his mom reminded me of something I really love about Thor that like is very Hufflepuff. He doesn't want to see the bad in people. Like he just doesn't. He can't take it. It breaks his heart if he believes someone's bad or deliberately wanted bad for him. Like he's clearly not over Jane in Endgame. He's like, yes, 'twas for the best, you know. She dumped me. 'Twas mutual. Like he's never gonna speak badly of her, really. He doesn't with Loki either. He really wants to understand him and just. And you're not.
I remember what I was thinking. Yeah, like. So like over like the emotional like relationships that you have with people and the problems that there could be, it's also kind of funny that how you have to analyze Thor too, because fighting is like physical fighting is a sign of camaraderie in like Asgardian culture. So So like he sees fighting as a bonding experience. Like we had been talking before this podcast about like how upset Thor was canonically was to be left out of Civil War because he literally would not have cared what side he was on. He just wanted to be there like beating people up with all of his friends and like nobody invited him. Or like you see it with Hulk, like they honestly do have like a little bit of a rivalry going on, but from Thor's side especially, it's mostly just like we have fun beating each other up. Like in Ragnarok when he was like, this is a friend from work, when Hulk had literally never showed him he's like, he's like that fighting is just part of the bonding experience. But I also talked about, so he's lost without his own people, right? But this whole othering thing that we're getting into constantly with Hufflepuffs now, which I think is so interesting that we only touched on it briefly with Cass, because Cass is more about being a part of something than he is about having to and Cass and Thor are super similar too, in that they're alien creatures. Like they're so above the normal person that it's you expect, like, it's natural to expect that kind of person to other people just because they're lesser than them, as opposed to like a normal everyday Hufflepuff who you're like, you're doing what to like your 9th grade English teacher? But like
the world is different for them. It's a completely different lens of seeing things.
But, like you see it, especially in the first movie, like if Thor doesn't care about you, you are an ant. And like you see them being like, they're like, hey, this other world is getting riled up. And Thor's like, let's go kill some bitches. Like, he doesn't care. He's just there, like, killing everybody for no reason. And then he pops back with absolutely no guilt or no remorse over it. He was like, these are not Asgardians, and they're not people.
And in I mean, relating it to Castiel from Supernatural is good, because he's this friggin' angel. Like demons, humans, anything that's not an angel, they're ants, the same way that these other planets and people are to Thor. It's the same kind of, that's a really good comparison, that the two of them are these like alien creatures, because it's a very specific kind of Hufflepuff. It's a very specific kind of othering.
Yeah, because it's one where you're just like naturally more powerful, and you probably, when you have that much power, don't think of it as othering, because it's just like these are other people that do not have immense power. Versus,
no, and I think that's an important distinction to make too. Like there's no awareness that they're doing it. It's just like it is. You're a god. You're an angel. You're like you're not fully aware.
Yeah, and you can see it. Like obviously, Cass gets it with Dean Winchester, and throughout the first movie, Thor is like throwing coffee cups on the ground and shit like that, and Jane is like, no. Like be nice to people. And he like gets there to the point where he's realizing that despite powers or not being in the same community, that you should be treating people like it's not a conscious decision to other people that I think normal everyday Hufflepuffs make, just because you have a regard for everybody, all humanity, and then you have to specifically lock people out in order to not have regard for them. It's like Thor and Cass at the beginning only see their community as that regard for everybody, and they actually have to actively be taught to extend it to people who are not like them.
Yeah. They need the petty tiny humans to teach them the way. But it's still sweet that I think that what I really, really like about Hufflepuffs is just going back to that, like giving the benefit of the doubt, right? Without that ability to give people the benefit of the doubt and like see past bullshit, even when you've othered, like you're not going to grow and learn. And Hufflepuffs are really, really good at that, at learning and growing. And like, it's just, I just keep going back to like a betrayal of the way Loki betrays Thor just would not fly with other houses. Like,
no, Loki legitimately kills him. Or like,
yeah. And like, you can't show me a house where that shit is true other than Hufflepuff. Like,
yeah,
it's just not. I don't see it. Like, you could say a Gryffindor is like very forgiving in that way, but so sorry for the Supernatural comparison. But a good example is like Dean Winchester. Okay, put him next to Thor and tell me if they'd handle the situation the same. Sam betrays him hypothetically. Dean might go, explain that shit to me, Sammy, because like that doesn't make sense to me.
Punches him in the face.
Then he'll walk away. He doesn't actually want Sam to explain shit to him, okay? Like, same with Tony. He doesn't want to hear Steve's shit in Endgame. He walks up to him with the IV, holding his 80-pound starved-ass body up like he's going to hear him out, then collapses under the weight of needing to use his last breath to call him a liar. Can you see Thor doing that? Like, no. Thor's giving Loki, Jane, everyone the benefit of the doubt. There's
You're
something he
going
can
against
learn
yourself.
from them.
Earlier, you said Gryffindor was the most forgiving house. Is the distinction that Hufflepuffs don't even really, like, as long as you're part of the community, it's not even really that you get, like, you just
There's no
excuse it off the
forgiveness.
bat?
It's not.
Well,
Yeah,
it's not because you
forgiveness.
just excuse it off the bat. You're like,
Yeah, they're not looking at it like a betrayal, like a Gryffindor would. A Gryffindor has categorized it as betrayal and needs to move past it.
Yeah, it's not like an active forgiveness. It's not something you have to go through to get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like your neutral state of being.
Yes, that is true.
well, I was going to talk about a little bit too. I don't want to talk about the dirty they did him in Endgame, but
It's canon, Lauren. We have to talk about it.
Before it started, like, the breakdown that he reaches is due to the fact that he could have killed Thanos and he didn't. So, and this, I feel like that, like, instead of it being like a responsibility thing for Gryffindor, it was more of like, it's again his identity as I am a warrior. I'm the strongest. This is how I identify myself to the outside world as a part of my community as an Asgardian. Like, it should have been me who killed Thanos as he imagines himself the best one. And I'm the superhuman being and I didn't do it. So, and that's where his spiral begins. And that's where he ends up at the end of the movie deciding that he's not going to rule Asgard after all, which, whatever.
But yeah, I think that's also tied into like having that be like your usefulness to your community. So to backtrack a little bit to Ragnarok, like when he loses Mjolnir, he's like, I've failed. Like, I have, like, where's my usefulness? Like, I don't have this thing. And he has to kind of get back to the point where he's like, okay, like, I can be useful without this.
But Mjolnir is like this huge symbol too. Like, Mjolnir is his worthiness.
Yes.
And so it's like I don't want to say it's appearance because it's not as shallow as that, but it's Thor's pride in his community and how do I express this to other people? And now I don't have my magic hammer that got me off, and now I don't have, and I didn't kill Thanos. So it's like, like, how do you know that I'm Asgardian? Right. How do you know? And that's all that's important to me. You need to know that I belong to Asgard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Well, I compared it to Rachel earlier about how, like, when Cass loses his grace, it's like, this not only made me who I was, but it was what made me useful.
Yeah.
And like good at what I do. And I feel like Thor kind of struggled with the same thing. And I think he does kind of move past it a little bit. But like when you see him in Endgame back in Asgard, and I do actually really like that moment with his mom. I really like that he gets that kind of closure with her, and kind of gets a little pep talk from her about like, you know, like being who he is and not who like he's supposed to be.
Right.
And then I just love when he's just like, you know, calling Mjolnir to him and he's like, I'm still worthy. Like, just so happy that he was like, yes, like, I think like you said, like it is a symbol to him too, like constantly of like, I am like, I can pick it up. I'm still worthy. Like I'm still.
Well, that's my
identity.
That is his place in Asgard. So it's like, if I don't have this, I don't belong to Asgard anymore. So where do I go from here? Which is really sad.
It is sad.
It's really
his story
sad.
is kind of sad.
It's extremely sad.
Really
and like,
sad.
and like he's still got more story, which I guess is going to be interesting to see because it's. From what we know, I guess it's potentially that he is trying to separate from Asgard a little. So maybe it will be the point where he starts building a house somewhere else.
It's so Hufflepuff of him to go from that one community to immediately to trying to find another community. Like, I sometimes have different, like, I have had challenges in the past discerning a Hufflepuff from a Slytherin because of the circles. But I think one of the major differences is like Hufflepuffs really want big communities. Like Thor really wants Asgard to be good. He wants it to be like working how it did when he was a kid in its glory days. And like, it's not that now. So I think he may be having an issue with that. And he wants the world to be this place that it was and it isn't. So he's got to try to kind of move on and find this new community with the Guardians. And it's a very Hufflepuff thing to go from to try to find another community too. Well, like if the other one's not working out.
I mean, I think mostly what his problem was is that it came to be this under his watch or whatever through this whole journey of
also
him.
it, yeah.
But through this whole journey of him trying to make himself worthy to rule Asgard, like that was what it was supposed to be. So he was getting to this point, and like I said, I thought Ragnarok had reached him to the point when it was like Asgard is a place, not a people. So if you're doing your best to preserve the people and protect the people and help the people thrive, then it doesn't matter where that is. And and I think, I mean, the regression that I see in canon is that because of this, it's like, so this was the regression. Like he had reached this point where he himself was worthy, and then he was realizing that he could be worthy to his community, and then the community was okay, but then this whole Thanos thing happened and he regressed his own worthiness. Like now he's not sure again, so he's like, I can't rule the people.
I think
it's okay. Regression is one way to say it, but I also just think he's traumatized entirely.
Yeah. It's 100% the PTSD of like failing the universe.
I'm saying it's regression, like that he had learned this lesson and now it's completely backtracked and scrubbed over because of this event that happened.
I do think that was a strange writing choice to just like to like decide he has this whole like Asgard is a people, and then like he fails the people by like becoming this beer drinking like sad boy. But I really think they try to explain that it's because he's so traumatized and exhausted, and like it's hard for him to even though he's had the realization, it's still hard for him because he's going through so much mentally. He's suffered a lot of loss.
It's a really long day for him between Ragnarok and Endgame. Like it's such a short time span that he goes through so much,
Yeah.
Like
he gets everybody away from the planet, and then Thanos comes and like kills half the people on the ship.
Kills the people, and kills his brother, Heimdall, kills Loki. Yep. Yeah.
Supposedly.
It's a lot to take in. So
he's a shithead.
Yeah. I think even just the way that he responds to the community, when he is traumatized, like he has his own community in his own little shithole apartment, right?
Yeah, I know.
He's taking care of his friends on the video game.
I think it's very Hufflepuff, and also is so sad that he had reached this point, but then like he hit that wall where he was like, I'm poisoning the people, so I have to separate myself from them, and it's for the community. Like he's telling Valkyrie to be the queen for the community. And he's like, I'm going to go off and like find my worthiness again. Like I need to figure out myself again. Who knows if he's going to, I hope he does go back to Asgard, because unlike all these other Hufflepuffs we've been talking about, I really do think Asgard is a very, very, he's been there for like thousands of years. Like,
but I guess that's a huge Hufflepuff thing too. Like they're loyal to traditions and just what they grew up with, like big time. And he's very, very tied to the culture of Asgard. Like, I don't think it would be in character for him not to return there inevitably.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, especially because it's not a community that, like, excommunicated him and was horrible to him.
Right.
Like, I think he should end up back there.
Yeah. And I think he feels he also must feel an obligation to it. Like, at some point.
Yeah, it's his heritage. He's supposed to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. We can wait for the next movie.
Maybe we'll come back to Thor after the next movie. Who knows?
He's a friggin' Hufflepuff.
Well, yeah, but whatever. Talk about more about how much Hufflepuff he is.
I would love that. Well, that is where we landed, folks. Whether you agree or you disagree, whether I have to apologize or not apologize. Hopefully I didn't insult you or your favorite character. We love these guys. Hannah especially.
I love them the most, except for Thor. Lauren loves Thor more than I do.
Oh, I was gonna say, I was like, exclude
Thor. I love Tony and Steve more than you guys could, but I know you love Thor very, very deeply.
It's not hard at all to love Steve more than Rachel and I do.
That's true.
No, I will say Tony is my favorite character in the whole MCU. So it's funny because we got a Tony stan, and then a Steve stan and a Thor stan.
But yeah, that's true.
Yep,
we do. Yeah. Covering our bases.
So we are coming from a place of love, and hopefully, if you had a different opinion, we've changed it to ours because that's fun.
Because it's correct.
Because it's correct. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed, and we will catch you later.
Anyway, yeah. Hope you're looking forward to your holiday season. Next episode's going to be a special holiday episode. Unfortunately, Christmas, because that's the dominating holiday of our American culture.
Unfortunately, Christmas.
Unfortunately. I mean, I don't want to be not inclusive, but if you guys know of any, like, we're going to start asking people for stuff we should sort. If you know of any, like, super cool holiday non-Christmas things that you want us to look at.
For sure. Just
I
make
would
sure
love
they're
that.
character studies. We're trying to learn about people. You feel me? We're trying to sort them. So
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sure
that's
you
all we
guys have
care about
amazing
is
ideas.
stalking people.
It's
Characters.
true.
Stalking characters and their emotional choices. Anyway, thank you for being here, Hannah.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the other side of the curtain. It was fun.
Yeah.
That was very fun. Thank you for all of your also correct opinions.
Yay. After I beat you behind the scenes for 2 years leading up to this.
Yeah. Well, you had to beat me into my own house.
That's true.
Yeah. And then once you did that, I was like, oh, this other stuff makes sense.
Let it be known that I beat people into their correct houses. So.
She does. Yep. Forcefully.
Yep. With a baseball
love.
bat. With a baseball bat of love. Yeah. All right. See you guys next week. Thanks for sorting with us.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Sorta Brilliant. If our sorting choices inspired any rage or excitement, we'd love to hear from you. We're open to feedback, suggestions for characters to sort, and solid counter-arguments with citations.
Never forget your citations. You can find us hanging out on Twitter and Instagram at SOB_pod, or shoot us an email at sortofbrilliant@gmail.com.
And since we're not above begging, please rate and subscribe to Sorta Brilliant on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Please share our posts on social media, and if you're a Gryffindor, maybe you'll inspire sorting fights among your own friend group.
Our theme music is Hot Shot by Scott Holmes. Can't wait to sort with you again next time. Bye!